Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is R.S. Raghu, and with me is Aditi Lumba bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. New Delhi says India supports all peace initiatives in Afghanistan and has a long-term commitment towards development and reconstruction of Afghanistan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chairs meeting of all political parties from Jammu and Kashmir in national capital, terms it as an important step in ongoing efforts towards a developed and progressive J&K. Over 30 crore doses of COVID vaccine administered in India so far. National recovery rate reaches 96.61%. New study finds over 2 million people in England are thought to have symptoms of long COVID-19. India and the US conduct joint naval exercise in the Indian Ocean. Apple daily forced to shut down under Beijing's new national security law. Former president of the Philippines, Benigno Aquino, dies in capital Manila. And in Euro 2020 football, France, Germany, Portugal, Sweden and Spain cruise into round of 16 stage. As the nation gears up for the free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years, we advise our listeners to get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow the 4 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene, and get vaccinated. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. India's External Affairs Ministry on Thursday said India supports all peace initiatives in Afghanistan and has a long-term commitment towards development and reconstruction of Afghanistan. Briefing media in New Delhi, Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said India remains in touch with various stakeholders, including regional countries.
Our perspective on Afghanistan has been enunciated on various occasions. India supports all peace initiatives and has a long-term commitment towards development and reconstruction of Afghanistan. In this context, we remain in touch with various stakeholders, including regional countries.
On Pakistan Foreign Minister's comments on India's role in Afghanistan, Mr. Bagchi said India firmly believes that it is for the Afghan people to decide their partners and the size of that partnership. He said India has brought electricity, dams, schools, health clinics, roads and community projects to Afghanistan, but the world knows what Pakistan has brought to Afghanistan. The spokesperson added that India desires normal relations with all neighbors, including Pakistan. He said Pakistan must work towards creating a conducive atmosphere, including by taking credible, verifiable and irreversible action to not allow any territory under its control to be used for cross-border terrorism against India in any manner. Meanwhile, President of Afghanistan, Mr. Ashraf Ghani, on Thursday reached Washington, D.C. for a 2-day official visit. Mr. Ghani will meet U.S. President Joe Biden to further the discussions on the U.S. and withdrawal and the peace process in Afghanistan.
Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, on Thursday chaired an all-party meeting with the political leaders from Jammu and Kashmir in the national capital, Delhi. The meeting was attended by leaders from various political parties, including National Conference leaders Dr. Farooq Abdullah and Omar Abdullah, Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad, PDP leader Mehbooba Mufti, Home Minister Amit Shah, Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha, BJP Jammu and Kashmir President Ravinder Raina and People's Conference President Sajjad Lone. This is the first such meeting since the 5th of August 2019 when the centre decided to abrogate Article 370 of the Constitution that gave Jammu and Kashmir a special status. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said delimitation has to happen at a quick pace so that polls can happen and Jammu and Kashmir gets an elected government that gives strength to Jammu and Kashmir's development trajectory. In a series of tweets, Mr. Modi said today's meeting with political leaders from Jammu and Kashmir is an important step in the ongoing efforts towards a developed and progressive Jammu and Kashmir where all-round growth is further read. He added that the priority is to strengthen grassroots democracy, statehood and other issues can be taken up. People's Conference leader Sajjad Lone said the meeting was held in a very cordial manner. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the Election Commission held virtual discussions with its representatives in Jammu and Kashmir and deputy commissioners regarding the delimitation of the 90 assembly constituencies in the Union Territory. External Affairs Ministry on Thursday said the SCO-NSA's meet in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, discuss issues of international and regional security, countering terrorism, extremism and radicalism, countering illicit trafficking of drugs. The meeting also discussed the preparations for the SCO Summit of Heads of State, which is likely to take place in Dushanbe later this year.
Tajikistan holds the current chair of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Tajikistan hosted the 16th meeting of the SCO Secretaries of the National Security Council's meeting on June 23rd in Dushanbe. The Indian delegation was led by our National Security Advisor. Secretary General of the SCO and the Executive Director of the SCO Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure also participated in this intergovernmental meeting. The meeting discussed issues of international and regional security, countering terrorism, extremism and radicalism, countering the illicit trafficking of drugs, and also the preparations for the SCO Summit Heads of State, which is to take place in Dushanbe in September this year. An outcome document in the nature of a protocol was adopted after the NSA level meeting.
On China, Mr. Bagchi said it is well recognized that Chinese actions over the last year have seriously disturbed peace and tranquility in the border areas. Briefing media this evening, Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said these acts are in violation of bilateral agreements, including the 1993 and 1996 agreements that mandate that the two sides shall strictly respect and observe the line of actual control, and that the two sides will keep their military forces in the areas along the line of actual control to a minimum level.
It is well recognized that it has been the Chinese actions over the last year, including amassing a large number of troops close to the border areas in the western sector, as well as trying to unilaterally alter the status quo along the line of actual control, which have seriously disturbed peace and tranquility in the border areas. These acts are in violation of our bilateral agreements, including the 1993 and 1996 agreements, that require the two sides to strictly respect and observe the line of actual control, and that two sides will keep their military forces in the areas along the line of actual control to a minimal level.
India has administered 64.89 lakh vaccine doses to eligible beneficiaries in the last 24 hours. With this, over 30.16 crore vaccine doses have been administered so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. The Health Ministry in a statement said that the country has reported 54,069 new cases in the last 24 hours. The active caseload in the country has further declined and reached the level of 6,27,000. Over 68,000 patients also recovered during the last 24 hours, taking the total recoveries to more than 2,90,63,000. The ministry added that daily recoveries continue to outnumber the daily new cases for the 42nd consecutive day. The country has registered further improvement in the recovery rate, which has now increased to 96.61%. India's External Affairs Ministry on Thursday said that the overseas supplies of vaccines from India would depend on vaccine availability and domestic vaccination program. Replying to a query on vaccine export, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi reiterated India's position on the matter.
Our position on the issue of vaccine exports has been consistent and clear. We have always stated that overseas supply of vaccines from India would depend on vaccine availability and our domestic vaccination program. For the moment, our priority remains on utilizing made-in-India vaccines for our own vaccination program, which, as you know, has received a boost with the new phase of vaccination that was launched earlier this week on June 21st. We are also making efforts to further increase our domestic vaccine production. Let me emphasize that GOI is making all efforts to augment vaccine availability in the country, be it through domestic production or imports. As regards the specific vaccines and the status of their imports into India, this is a matter for the concerned regulatory authorities.
Replying to another query, Mr. Bagchi said the National Health Authority proposes to organize an event with partner countries across the world to share details of the indigenously developed CoWIN app.
During his intervention at the recent G7 summit, Prime Minister had offered to share India's experience and expertise in the successful use of open source digital tools in contact tracing and vaccine management. In pursuance of this, the National Health Authority proposes to organize an event with partner countries across the world to share details of the indigenously developed CoWIN app, which has been at the center of our vaccination drive. We will provide further updates about this event once the dates and other details have been firmed up.
Now let's take a look at the coronavirus updates from around the world. Directors General of WHO, WIPO and WTO met to map out further collaboration to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and the pressing global challenges at the intersection of public health, intellectual property and trade. In a statement, the WHO said that the WHO, WIPO, WTO trilateral cooperation that aims to support and assist all countries as they seek to assess and implement sustainable and integrated solutions to public health challenges. Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly has issued a joint statement in support of the declaring the year 2021 as the International Year of Health and Care Workers. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus in a message congratulated all the signatories of the joint statement.
I would like to thank the permanent missions of Brazil, Georgia, Japan, South Africa, Thailand and Turkey for organizing this informal session of the General Assembly to recognize health and care workers around the world. The health and care workforce has been at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic. Far too many have felt the brunt of its impact. Infections among health and care workers have been widespread and many have suffered from anxiety, fatigue and occupational burnout. WHO estimates that at least 115,000 health and care workers may have lost their lives during the pandemic. WHO has designated 2021 the International Year of the Health and Care Worker with the theme Protect, Invest Together. This essential workforce needs regular salaries, pay equity, safe working conditions, continuing education, and opportunities for career advancement.
Over 2 million people in England are thought to have had one or more COVID-19 symptoms lasting at least 12 weeks. The finding was according to the REACT-2 study funded by the UK government. The finding suggests prevalence of persistent symptoms or long COVID increases with age with a 3.5% increase in likelihood in each decade of life. Another report said that a 72-year-old British man tested positive for coronavirus for 10 months.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
The centre is disseminating awareness of national helpline numbers for the benefit of citizens during the COVID-19 pandemic. The helpline number of the Health and Family Welfare Ministry is 1075. The child helpline number is 1098. For senior citizens of Delhi, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, the helpline number is 14567. The helpline number of National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, for psychological support is 08046110007. Ayush COVID-19 counselling helpline number is 14443 and MyGov WhatsApp help desk number is 9013151515.
External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will be leaving Friday for a visit to Greece and Italy. Briefing media, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that during the two-day visit to Greece, Dr. Jaishankar will meet his counterpart. This is the first visit at the External Affairs Minister level since 2003. After Greece, the minister will travel to Italy to attend the G20 ministerial meetings. These include the meetings related to foreign ministerial level as well as the development ministers level. Indian naval ships and Indian Air Force jets aircraft participated in a passage exercise with US Navy carrier strike group Ronald Reagan for the second consecutive day on Thursday. The Indian naval warships, along with aircraft from Indian Navy and Indian Air Force, are engaged in joint multi-domain operations with the Carrier Strike Group of U.S. Navy comprising aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan. Indian naval ships Kochi and Teak, along with P-8I and MiG-29K aircraft are participating in a passage exercise with the U.S. Navy during its transit through Indian Ocean region. The two-day exercise aims to strengthen the bilateral relationship by boosting interoperability in maritime operations. The U.S. Navy and Indian Navy will carry out cross-deck helicopter operations and anti-submarine exercises. The participating forces aim to promote peace, security and stability in the maritime domain. Our correspondent reports these drills in the Indian Ocean symbolize the shared values as partner navies in ensuring commitment to an open, inclusive and a rule-based international order that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other Quad leaders required in the Quad Summit in March this year.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will make her first trip since taking office to the U.S. southern border with Mexico on Friday. According to a statement from the White House, Ms. Harris will travel to El Paso with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The visit was announced a week after former President Donald Trump said he would go to the border on the 30th of June. The number of undocumented migrants reaching the U.S.-Mexico border is at the highest level in more than 20 years. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said the Vice President was going because the administration had determined now is the appropriate time for her to go to the border and help get the situation under control. Earlier this month, Ms. Harris made her first trip abroad as Vice President, traveling to Mexico and Guatemala for talks about the humanitarian crises. The U.S. has taken additional steps to remove goods made with forced labor, including those from Xinjiang, from its supply chains. A statement from the White House said that the actions are in accordance with the recently concluded G7 summit in Cornwall, which committed to ensuring global supply chains are free from the use of forced labor. It added that the actions demonstrate their commitment to imposing additional costs on China for engaging in cruel and inhumane forced labor practices and ensuring that Beijing plays by the rules of fair trade as part of the rules-based international order. It said that China's forced labor practices run counter to American values as a nation and expose their consumers to unethical practices.
Hong Kong's pro-democracy newspaper, the Apple Daily, published its last edition on Thursday as it was forced to end a 26-year journey amid a national security crackdown that froze the company's funds. The newspaper said it was forced to cease operations after police froze $2.3 million of its assets, searched its office and arrested 5 top editors and executives last week, accusing them of foreign collusion to endanger national security. As per reports, the final edition of Hong Kong's last remaining pro-democracy paper sold out in hours Thursday as loyal readers bought all 1 million copies of the Apple Daily, whose closure was yet another sign of China's tightening grip on the semi-autonomous city. Prasar Bharati special correspondent in Beijing reports that last week's arrest of the Apple Daily employees presented the first time the national security law had been used against journalists for something they publish. Jimmy Lai, Apple Daily's owner and staunch Beijing critic, has been in jail since December over unauthorized rallies during Hong Kong's mass pro-democracy protests in 2019 and faces national security charges. Secretary Antony J. Blinken and German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas met on Thursday in Berlin at the Memorial to the Murdered Jews of Europe to launch a new dialogue on Holocaust issues. In a statement, Secretary Blinken and Foreign Minister Maas underscored their shared commitment to combat Holocaust denial and distortion and to finding innovative new ways to enhance Holocaust education.
Meanwhile, the U.S. President Joe Biden laid out new measures to tackle America's gun crisis Wednesday. Biden unveiled his strategy during a televised address following a White House meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland. Mr. Biden said that the new measures seek to enforce the U.S. Constitution and not change it. His plan addresses ways stemming the flow of firearms used to commit violence. It also enables jurisdictions to reallocate unspent COVID-19 recovery funds to pay for new police hires. crime-fighting technology like gunshot detection systems, and expanded efforts to prosecute gun traffickers. Biden also signaled that authorities would crack down on what he described as merchants of death who supply the bulk of weapons used in crimes. The House of Representatives passed 2 bills in March aimed at enhancing background checks and closing other loopholes which promote what Mr. Biden called a gun violence epidemic.
Former Philippine President Benigno Aquino died on Thursday. According to reports, the country's foreign minister and several officials said that Aquino was rushed to the Capital Medical Center in Manila early Thursday. Aquino, who was the president of the Archipelago nation from 2010 to 2016, was the son of the late former president Corazon Aquino and her assassinated husband, Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino. Aquino was succeeded by the current president, Rodrigo Duterte.
Central African Republic CAR Special Representative and head of the UN Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission MINUSCA, Mancure Ndiaye, voiced his concern over a military counter-offensive against the Coalition of Patriots for Change CPC. The CPC is an alliance of armed groups that launched attacks against forces loyal to the government ahead of the presidential vote in December, which returned incumbent Fochon Archon Todera to power on the 4th of January. According to a statement, Mr. Ndiaye, addressing ambassadors in French inside the council chamber, said that the result has been an unprecedented humanitarian crisis with the new waves of displacement and 57% of the population in need of humanitarian assistance. The MINUSCA chief said that the looting and militarization of civilian infrastructure such as schools and hospitals hinder already inadequate access to basic services and undermine the protection of civilians and humanitarian assistance and peace and stability efforts. Meanwhile, a resolution authorizing the border crossing of humanitarian convoys from Turkey that bring life-saving aid into northwest Syria is set to expire on 10th of July. Drawing attention to the impending crisis, UN Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres strongly appealed to the members of the UN Security Council to reach consensus on allowing cross-border operations as a vital channel of support for another year. More than 1,000 trucks have been transporting food, medicine and other items through the Bab al-Hawa border crossing each month over the past year.
And now a report from the business world.
The Sensex climbed 393 points or 0.75% to end at 52,699. The Nifty also appreciated 104 points or 0.66% to settle at 15,790. In global equity markets, Asian shares logged marginal gains awaiting further catalyst and cues. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.3% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained 0.2%. Singapore's Straits Times, China's Shanghai Composite Index and Japan's Nikkei 225 ended flat. European shares were up in intraday trade. Oil prices dipped but still held at multi-year highs. In intraday trade, Brent crude prices were trading around $75 per barrel. Back home, gold prices gained 80 rupees at multi-commodity exchange for August contracts amid gains in gold prices in the international markets. Gold was trading at 47,160 rupees per 10 grams. Silver prices also climbed 60 rupees to trade around 68,000 rupees per kilogram for July contracts when reports last came in. And the rupee appreciated 12 paise to close at 74 rupees and 17 paise against the US dollar. Rajesh Lake, World News, All India Radio.
Moving on to sports, in the Euro Cup football, France, Germany, Portugal, Sweden and Spain cruised into the round of 16 stage after beating their respective teams in the group final round matches. In the Group F final game, Portugal held France to a 2-2 draw in Budapest. Cristiano Ronaldo scored 2 penalties to tie the overall men's scoring record with 109 goals and give Portugal a spot in the round of 16. Germany too reached in the last 16 after finishing 2-2 draw against Hungary at Munich in the Group F match. France, unbeaten throughout the group stage, tops F group. Germany finishes second and Portugal third. Hungary is out of the competition. Sweden registered a 3-2 exciting victory over Poland at St. Petersburg to finish top of Group E. Poland crashed out of the Euro 2020. Sweden's Emil Forsberg in the second and the 59th minute and Victor Claesson won it in the added minute after Robert Lewandowski 2 spectacular goals for Poland. In other match group of E, Spain thrashed Slovakia 5-0 at Seville to set up a last 16 tie with Croatia on Monday night in Copenhagen. For Spain, Martin Dubravka scored first goal, Aymeric Laporte netted the second and Pablo Sarabia tapped in another, with Ferran Torres adding a fourth and Vujacic netting the fifth goal. With 28 days remaining for the start of the Tokyo Olympics, All India Radio brings a special series on India's medal prospects at the sporting extravaganza. Today we will focus on the young shooter Divyansh Singh Panwar.
With his skill and a burning desire to achieve something great for his country, Divyansh is a strong contender for a medal at the Tokyo Olympics.
हर किसी को ये अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिलती ओलंपिक खेलने की, ओलंपिक जाने की। अपनी पूरी जी जान से कोशिश करूंगा ओलंपिक में मेडल लाने की।
With his performances at the 10-meter air rifle event at the junior level, Divyansh showed the world that he is destined to excellence. Divyansh bagged 4 gold medals at the ISSF tournament in 2019. Apart from the individual events, Divyansh struck gold for India in the mixed team events. With the support of the Indian government, Divyansh says he wants to perform even better at the Tokyo Olympics.
गवर्नमेंट और साई का हमें काफी सपोर्ट मिला है। हमें उन्होंने फाइनल हॉल दिया है, प्रोवाइड किया हमारे लिए। बहुत ही अच्छी रेंजेस बनाए हैं हमारे लिए। ट्रेनिंग में फाइनल हॉल में इसलिए कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि यहाँ पे मेंटल स्टेटस थोड़ा सा अलग होता है।
Divyansh's mother speaks proudly of his dedication to the greatest of all sporting events.
दिव्यांश बहुत मेहनत कर रहा है इस समय। सुबह 5:30 बजे उठना, वर्कआउट करना, रेंज जाना, मेडिटेशन करना, उसके बाद जो उनकी प्राइवेट कोच के रेंज है उसमें जाना, रात को 10 साढ़े 10 बजे फिर वो वापस आता है।
Like any other athlete, Divyansh also has dreamt the Olympic dream.
मैं चाहता हूँ कि मैं भी इंडिया के लिए गोल्ड मेडल लेके आऊँ।
With an indomitable will, energy and high hopes, Divyansh is ready to take Indian shooting to new heights at the Tokyo Olympics. For Sports Desk, AIR News.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Washington Post writes that officials says 51 people unaccounted for after collapse of condo building near Miami Beach. New York Times reports that the Biden administration is preparing to relocate thousands of Afghans who aided American troops to other countries while they apply for U.S. visas. Financial Times writes that JP Morgan pushes bankers to get vaccine before office return. South China Morning Post writes that China turns to unregulated private security firms to protect interests along Mekong. The Guardian reports that Lewis Hamilton fears allowing 140,000 fans at F1 British Grand Prix is premature. A quick look at the headlines once again. New Delhi says India supports all peace initiatives in Afghanistan and has a long-term commitment towards development and reconstruction of Afghanistan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chairs meeting of all political parties from Jammu and Kashmir in national capital, turns it as an important step in ongoing efforts towards the development progressive J&K. Over 30 crore doses of COVID vaccine administered in India so far. National recovery rate reaches 96.61%. New study finds over 2 million people in England are thought to have symptoms of long COVID-19. India and the US conduct joint naval exercise in the Indian Ocean. Apple daily forced to shut down under Beijing's new national security law. Former President of the Philippines, Benigno Aquino, dies in capital Manila. And Euro 2020 football, France, Germany, Portugal, Sweden, Spain cruise into round of 16 stage. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Sweden. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.